Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the stars through the large window. The New Horizon was one of humanity's newest colony ships, carrying 5,000 people to their new home on a distant planet. Jake had been flying between the stars for 10 years now, and he still loved the sight of space stretching out forever. The communication panel started beeping. Jake walked over and pressed the button. A strange face appeared on the screen. The alien had blue skin, 4 eyes, and a mouth that was too wide for its head. Jake had seen this species before. They were called the Velthari, and they were part of the Galactic Council. "I am Ambassador Zethkar," the alien said in perfect English. "I speak for the Galactic Council. You will listen carefully to what I say." Jake frowned. The alien's tone was not friendly. "This is Captain Morrison of the New Horizon. What can I do for you, Ambassador?" "You can stop what your species is doing," Zethkar replied. His 4 eyes all focused on Jake at the same time. "Humanity has expanded too far too fast. The Council has made a decision about your future." On Earth, President Lisa Coleman was having her morning coffee when her assistant rushed into the office. The young man looked worried as he handed her a datapad. "Madam President, we just received an official message from the Galactic Council. You need to see this right away." Lisa took the pad and read the message. Her coffee cup shook in her hand as she read the words. She pressed a button on her desk and spoke into the intercom. "Get me Admiral Jackson, Secretary Phillips, and Dr. Wright. Emergency meeting in 10 minutes." Admiral Pete Jackson was the first to arrive. He was a tall man with gray hair and scars on his hands from his years as a fighter pilot. Secretary of State Ryan Phillips came next, looking calm as always in his dark suit. Dr. Helen Wright was last, still wearing her lab coat from the research facility. "They want us to stop," Lisa said without greeting them. "No more expansion, beyond our current 17 systems. No more military development without their permission. They want reports on all our research." Pete slammed his fist on the table. "They can't do this to us, we're not their slaves." "Actually, they can," Ryan said quietly. "The Council has 12 species. Each one is older and more advanced than us. If they decide to use force, then we fight," Pete said. "With what?" Ryan asked. "Our best ships are no match for theirs. They've been traveling between stars for thousands of years while we've only been doing it for 20. Dr. Wright had been quiet, but now she spoke up. "There might be another way. My team has been working on something new. Quantum field manipulation. If it works, it could change everything." "What do you mean?" Lisa asked. "I mean, we might not be as helpless as they think we are." Far from Earth, on the red planet Mars, Governor Alex Turner was reading the same message. He had built Mars into humanity's second most important world. Millions of people lived in the great domed cities, and the planet's factories built ships and equipment for the human colonies. Alex called his military commander, Colonel Sarah Davis. She arrived at his office within minutes, still wearing her uniform from the morning drill with the Mars Defense Force. "Sarah, how many ships do we have ready for combat?" Alex asked. 43 combat vessels, sir, plus about 200 civilian ships that could be armed if needed. The Council thinks they can push us around. They're wrong." In the asteroid belt near Jupiter, Director Tony Martinez was managing the largest mining operation in human space. Thousands of workers lived on the mining stations, pulling valuable metals from the floating rocks. Tony had been born on one of these stations. This was his home, and no alien government was going to tell him what to do with it. He gathered his station commanders in the main meeting room. These were tough people who had spent their lives in the dangerous work of space mining. "The Council wants us to stop expanding," Tony told them. "They want to control our military and our research. What do you think about that?" "I think they can go to hell," said Station Commander Lisa Park. The other commanders agreed. They had worked too hard to build their lives in space to give up now. Back on the New Horizon, Captain Morrison was still talking to Ambassador Zethkar. The alien had been explaining the Council's demands for 20 minutes. "Your species is dangerous," Zethkar said. "In just 20 years, you have spread to 17 star systems. You fight among yourselves. You create weapons. You do not follow the proper rules." "What rules?" Jake asked. "Nobody told us there were rules." "The rules of civilized species. You expand too quickly. You ask too many questions. You do not respect authority." Jake felt anger building in his chest. "We respect authority when it makes sense. We expand because we want to explore. We ask questions because that's how we learn. If that makes us dangerous, then maybe you're the ones with the problem." Zethkar's 4 eyes narrowed. "You will comply with our demands, or there will be consequences." The screen went dark. President Coleman stood at the window of her office looking out at the city below. Millions of people were living their lives, not knowing that aliens on the other side of the galaxy were trying to control their future. Admiral Jackson entered without knocking. "Lisa, we need to talk." "I know what you're going to say, Pete." "Do you?" "Because I'm going to say that maybe it's time to show them what humans are really capable of." Dr. Wright appeared in the doorway. "I've been thinking about our quantum research. If we could develop it in secret." "How long would you need?" Lisa asked. 6 months. Maybe less if I get all the resources I need." "And what would it do?" "It would level the playing field. Their technology works on principles they've used for centuries. Our quantum fields could disrupt those principles, make their ships helpless." "Admiral." Jackson smiled for the first time in days. "Now you're talking." President Coleman made her decision. "We'll appear to comply with their demands, send them reports, stop our public expansion. But secretly we prepare. Dr. Wright gets everything she needs. Admiral Jackson coordinates with the colony militias. We're not going to roll over and let them control us." Across human space, the same decision was being made. On Mars, in the asteroid mining stations, on colony worlds, and on ships traveling between the stars. Humanity had been pushed, and now they were going to push back. The Council thought they understood humans. They had watched humanity fight wars on Earth. They had seen the violence and chaos. They thought this made humans predictable. They were about to learn how wrong they were. In the darkness between stars, the real preparation began. 3 months had passed since the Council's ultimatum. To anyone watching, it looked like humanity had given up. Human ships stopped expanding into new systems. The military sent reports to the Council every week. Colony governors answered questions from alien inspectors, but underneath the surface, something else was happening. Dr. Helen Wright worked in a secret laboratory built deep inside Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. The facility was hidden under 2 miles of ice. No Council sensors could detect it. Her team of 50 scientists worked day and night on the quantum field project. "Show me the test results again," Helen said to her assistant, Dr. Kevin Ross. Kevin pulled up the data on the main screen. "We successfully disrupted the shield generators on 3 different alien ship designs. The quantum field interferes with their power systems in ways they never expected." Helen smiled. It was working. The aliens had used the same technology for so long that they never thought someone might find a way to break it. "What about the navigation systems?" "Even better. We can make their ships lose track of where they are in space. They'll be flying blind." On Mars, Governor Alex Turner was meeting with his military commanders in an underground bunker. The Council inspectors thought he was running a mining operation. They had no idea that the tunnels under the Martian surface were being turned into weapon storage facilities. Colonel Sarah Davis spread a map on the table. "We've established supply caches in 47 locations across the outer systems. Food, fuel, ammunition, medical supplies. Everything our people will need if this turns into a real fight." "What about communication?" Alex asked. "We're using the old mining communication networks. The Council doesn't know they exist. We can coordinate with every human settlement without them hearing us." Captain Jake Morrison was now commanding a small fleet of exploration ships. At least, that's what the Council thought. Really, his ships were testing new stealth technology that made them invisible to alien sensors. Jake stood on the bridge of his new ship, the Freedom's Edge. His crew was running tests on the stealth system when his communications officer called out. "Captain, we're picking up Council ship movements. Near the Kepler system." Jake walked over to look at the sensor data. What he saw made his blood run cold. That's not a patrol. That's an invasion fleet. On the screen, 43 Council warships were positioning themselves around human colonies. They were too many, ships for normal security. They were preparing for something big. "Get me a secure channel to Earth," Jake ordered. President Lisa Coleman was in her office when the message from Captain Morrison arrived. Admiral Pete Jackson and Secretary Ryan Phillips were with her, discussing the latest Council demands. "They want us to recall all military ships to designated facilities," Ryan was saying. "For decommissioning, they claim." That's when Jake's message came through. Lisa listened to his report about the Council fleet movements with growing alarm. "They're surrounding our colonies," she said after the message ended. "This isn't about compliance. They're preparing to attack." Pete stood up, his face red with anger. "I told you this would happen. They never intended to let us keep our freedom." On the Council's capital world of Nexus Prime, High Arbiter Kethmore was meeting with his war council. The ancient Nexari leader was over 800 years old. He had seen the rise and fall of dozens of species. "The humans are more dangerous than we thought," said General Vexhai of the Karathi military caste. "Our intelligence reports show they are not truly complying with our demands." "What do you mean?" Kethmore asked. "They appear to be following orders, but our deep sensors detect unusual activity. Hidden facilities, secret communications. They are planning something." Ambassador Zethkar, who had delivered the original ultimatum, spoke up. "I warned the Council that humans were unpredictable. Perhaps we should have been more direct from the beginning." "More direct how?" Kethmore asked. "Complete relocation. To a single system, under constant supervision. No military capability, no independent research. Total control." The other Council members agreed. Humanity had proven they could not be trusted with freedom. Dr. Wright was still working in her hidden laboratory when she received an urgent message from Earth. President Coleman wanted to know if the quantum weapons were ready. Helen looked at her exhausted team. They had been working for months with little sleep, but the weapons were almost ready. "Kevin, start production of the portable units. How many can we make in 2 weeks?" "Maybe 50,000. That's enough to equip our special forces and key ship crews." "Do it. And send a message to Admiral Jackson. Tell him Operation Silent Thunder is ready for the next phase." Captain Morrison was leading his stealth ships on a reconnaissance mission when he discovered something that changed everything. His ships were watching a Council military base when they intercepted a communication. "All units report to staging areas," the alien commander was saying. "Operation containment begins in 72 hours. Target: all human settlements." Jake realized what this meant. The Council wasn't just planning to control humanity. They were planning to destroy any humans who refused to surrender. He immediately sent an encrypted message to every human commander in space. "Red alert. Council attack imminent. Prepare for war." On Earth, President Coleman addressed her closest. Advisors in the emergency bunker beneath the Capitol. "They've made their choice," she said. "The Council never intended to coexist with us. They want to eliminate us as a threat." "What are our options?" Ryan asked. Admiral Jackson answered. "We fight, or we become slaves. Those are the only choices they've given us." Dr. Wright's voice came through the communication system from Europa. "The quantum disruptors are ready. We can take down their shields and navigation systems, but we'll only get one chance to surprise them." "How long before they realize what we're doing?" Lisa asked. "Once we start using the weapons, they'll adapt quickly. Maybe a few months before they develop countermeasures. Then we make those months count." Governor Turner on Mars was already moving supplies and people into the underground facilities. The Red Planet's population was preparing for siege. Director Martinez in the asteroid belt was arming civilian mining ships with weapons. The space miners were tough people who wouldn't give up without a fight. Across human space, colonists were making the same decision. They had built new lives among the stars. They had families, homes, dreams for the future. The Council wanted to take all of that away. The trap was closing, but humanity was ready. Captain Morrison received his final orders from Admiral Jackson. "Take your stealth ships and position them near Council facilities. When this starts, We need to hit them everywhere at once. Understood, Admiral. What about civilian evacuation? There won't be time. The Council is moving too fast. We have to win this fight where we stand. Jake looked out at the stars one more time. Somewhere out there, alien fleets were preparing to destroy everything humanity had built. But they had underestimated what humans were capable of when their backs were against the wall. The Council thought they knew about human violence from watching Earth's history. They were about to learn that there was a difference between fighting each other and fighting for survival. The war was about to begin. The colony world of Haven's Rest was supposed to be empty by now. The Council had ordered all humans to leave the planet and return to the inner systems. But Mayor Susan Blake stood in the town square, looking at the faces of 3,000 colonists who had refused to go. "This is our home," Susan told the crowd. "We built this place with our own hands. We turned empty land into farms and cities. No alien government is going to force us to abandon everything we've worked for." The colonists cheered. They had spent 5 years making Haven's Rest into a beautiful world. Green fields stretched to the horizon where once there had been only bare rock. Children played in parks that hadn't existed when the first settlers arrived. Schools and hospitals served families who had traveled across the galaxy to build new lives. On the orbital station above the planet, Captain Bill Harper watched the Council fleet approach. 47 warships from 3 different alien species were coming to force the evacuation. Bill commanded the only human ship in the system, a small patrol vessel called the Defender. "Captain, they're demanding we surrender and prepare for immediate evacuation," his communications officer reported. "Tell them the colonists are not leaving," Bill replied. The lead Council ship was commanded by Admiral Thexvor of the Karathi species. The alien general had fought in dozens of wars across the galaxy. He expected the humans to surrender quickly when they saw his overwhelming force. "Human vessel, this is your final warning. Evacuate all personnel from the planet's surface immediately, or we will use force." Captain Harper's response was broadcast on all frequencies so every ship could hear it. "Admiral, these people are not soldiers. They are farmers, teachers, doctors, and children. They have done nothing wrong except build homes on a world the Council gave them permission to settle. If you attack civilians, you will be committing murder." Admiral Thexvor had his orders. The Council wanted all humans removed from frontier worlds. If they refused to leave peacefully, force was authorized. "Open fire on the human ship," he ordered. The Defender was destroyed in seconds. Captain Harper and his crew of 23 died trying to protect the colonists below. On the planet's surface, Susan Blake watched the burning wreckage fall from the sky. She activated the colony's emergency communication system. "This is Haven's Rest to all human settlements. The Council is attacking. They just destroyed our only ship. We need help." Admiral Thexvor turned his attention to the planet. His targeting. Computers identified the colony's main settlement, the power station, and the farms that fed the population. "Destroy the military targets," he told his weapons officers. But there were no military targets. Haven's Rest was a civilian colony. The power station provided electricity to homes and hospitals. The agricultural centers grew food for families. The largest building was an elementary school. The orbital bombardment began at noon local time. The first blast destroyed the power station, cutting electricity to the medical center, where Dr. Nancy Williams was treating sick children. The second blast hit the main farming complex where dozens of workers were harvesting crops. Susan Blake was in the town hall when the third blast shook the building. She ran outside and saw fires burning across the colony. People were screaming and running in panic. A family with 2 small children ran past her, the father carrying his injured wife. "The school!" someone shouted. "They hit the school!" Susan ran toward the elementary school through smoke and falling debris. When she arrived, she found teachers pulling children from the damaged building. Many were hurt and crying. Some were not crying at all. The bombardment continued for 2 hours. When it ended, over 3,000 people were dead or wounded. Homes were destroyed. The hospital was in ruins. The farms that had fed the colony were burning fields of ash. Admiral Thexvor sent a message to the survivors. Evacuate immediately, or face complete destruction. Susan Blake stood in the ruins of her town and activated the communication system one more time. Her voice was carried across human space to every colony, every ship, every settlement. This is Mayor Susan Blake of Haven's Rest. The Council has murdered our families. They have destroyed our homes. They have killed our children. We will not surrender. We will not run. If we must die, we will die as free humans. On Earth, President Lisa Coleman watched the broadcast with tears in her eyes. The images from Haven's Rest showed the true face of the Council's intentions. Bodies in the streets, destroyed schools, burning homes. Admiral Pete Jackson stood beside her, his face hard with rage. How many children? Over 400, Lisa whispered. Secretary Ryan Phillips, who had always argued for diplomatic solutions, stared at the screen in shock. They're not trying to control us, they're trying to destroy us. Dr. Helen Wright's voice came through the communication system from Europa. The quantum disruptors are ready, all units deployed. We can strike back now. President Coleman addressed the nation and all human colonies in an emergency broadcast. Her voice was calm, but everyone could hear the steel underneath. The Galactic Council has shown us who they really are. They claim to be civilized, but they murder children. They call us dangerous, but they destroy peaceful settlements. They demand we submit to their authority, but their authority is built on the graves of innocents. She paused, looking directly into the camera. The Council wanted to see what makes humanity dangerous. They pushed us beyond our limits. They have awakened something they should have left alone. We are no longer the species that begged for acceptance among the stars. We are the species that will make them pay for every child they killed. On Mars, Governor Alex Turner activated the planetary defense systems. The Red Planet's hidden weapons came online for the first time. In the asteroid belt, Director Tony Martinez armed every mining ship and transport vessel. Thousands of civilian ships became a military fleet overnight. Captain Jake Morrison received the final order from Admiral Jackson. Operation Silent Thunder is now active. All units engage Council targets immediately. Jake looked at his crew, on the bridge of the Freedom's Edge. These young men and women had joined him to explore the galaxy peacefully. Now they were going to war. Take us to attack position, he ordered. Across human space, the same scene was repeated on hundreds of ships. Peaceful explorers became warriors. Scientists became weapons designers. Farmers became soldiers. The Council had made a fatal mistake. They thought humanity's capacity for violence was a weakness that made them predictable. They never understood that it was actually a strength that made them unstoppable when they fought for something they loved. The war had begun, and humanity was no longer holding back. High Arbiter Keth Moore received the first reports of human attacks within hours. Council facilities across the galaxy were under assault by ships that appeared from nowhere and struck with weapons that bypassed all known defenses. How is this possible? He asked his advisors. We underestimated them, Admiral Thexivore replied, from Haven's Rest. The humans were not submitting. They were preparing. Preparing for what? To show us what happens when you push them too far. The war exploded across the galaxy like wildfire. In 17 star systems, human ships appeared out of nowhere and struck Council targets with weapons that should not have existed. The aliens who had ruled space for 2,000 years, suddenly, found themselves fighting an enemy they did not understand. Captain Jake Morrison led the attack on Kepler Station, the Council's largest military shipyard. For 800 years, the massive facility had built warships for the alien fleet. Today, it would burn. Jake's stealth ships approached the station without being detected. His crew worked quietly at their stations, knowing that thousands of human lives depended on their success. Quantum disruptors ready, reported his weapons officer, Lieutenant Amy Clark. Fire, Jake ordered. The Council ships defending the station suddenly went dark. Their shields collapsed. Their weapons stopped working. Their navigation systems failed. The mighty alien warships became helpless metal boxes floating in space. All ships, attack formation, Jake commanded. The human fleet struck like lightning. Missiles and energy beams tore through the unprotected Council ships. The massive shipyard, which had seemed invincible just minutes before, exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from 3 planets away. The psychological impact was enormous. For the first time in centuries, someone had destroyed a major Council facility. Species across the galaxy watched the news reports in shock. On Haven's Rest, Colonel Frank Davis led the liberation of the colony. The Council had left ground troops to maintain control of the ruined settlement. They expected an easy occupation of a defeated population. Instead, they faced human soldiers who fought like nothing they had ever encountered. Colonel Davis and his team moved through the burned city using tactics the aliens could not predict. The Council's rigid military training had not prepared them for an enemy that changed plans every few minutes. Squad 2, circle around the power station, Frank ordered through his radio. Squad 3, hit them from the school ruins. Make them think we're everywhere at once. The alien commander, General HFY, tried to coordinate his forces from the command post in the town center. His soldiers were trained to fight organized battles against predictable enemies. The humans attacked from unexpected directions, used the ruins for cover, and disappeared before the aliens could respond. "Where are they?" General HFY demanded. "Everywhere, sir," his aide replied. "Our sensors show human forces in 12 different locations, but when we send troops, they find nothing." "How many humans are there?" "We estimate 50 soldiers, sir." General HFY commanded 300 elite troops. He should have been able to crush 50 humans easily. Instead, his forces were being picked apart by an enemy that refused to fight fair. Dr. Helen Wright watched the battle reports from her laboratory on Europa. Her quantum disruptors were working perfectly. Council ships across the galaxy were being disabled by weapons that bypassed their defenses completely. "Kevin, what's the success rate?" she asked her assistant. 96% effectiveness against all Council ship classes, Dr. Kevin Ross replied. "Their shields are useless against our quantum fields. And ground equipment? Even better. Our portable units can disable alien vehicles, weapons, and communication gear from 100 meters away." The Council's technological advantage, built over thousands of years, was disappearing overnight. On the frontier world of New Texas, civilian colonists fought off a Council invasion force using farm equipment and mining tools equipped with quantum disruptors. Alien tanks and aircraft fell silent as human farmers advanced across the battlefield. Mary Johnson, a school teacher turned resistance leader, coordinated the defense from an old barn. "The quantum fields are working," she reported to her team. "Their hover tanks just stopped moving. Tom, take your group and capture those soldiers before they figure out what happened." The Council ground forces found themselves stranded without working equipment, facing angry humans who remembered the children killed at Haven's Rest. In space, the war was spreading beyond the human systems. Other species began to take notice of humanity's success against the Council. The Zephyrian trade union had been forced to pay heavy taxes to the Council for centuries. When they saw human ships destroying Council facilities, they quietly began supplying humanity with fuel and supplies. Captain Dan Foster of the merchant ship Lucky Strike met with Zephyrian traders in the neutral zone between star systems. "We cannot openly support your war," the Zephyrian captain explained. "But if supply ships were to accidentally lose cargo containers near human colonies, and if these containers happened to contain useful materials, we would make sure those containers found good homes," Dan replied with a smile. The Corvani had been conquered by the Council 300 years ago. Their warrior culture had been suppressed, their military disbanded. But when they saw humans fighting the same enemy, old grudges awakened. Admiral Vector, once a great Corvani fleet commander, came out of hiding on a remote mining world. He sent a secret message to Admiral Jackson on Earth. "Human warriors, the Council crushed my people long ago, but Corvani ships still exist in hidden bases. If you share your quantum weapons, we will join your fight." Within 6 months, the Council faced rebellions in a dozen systems. The Corvani attacked with renewed fury. The Zephyrians stopped paying taxes and began building their own warships. 3 minor species declared independence and joined the growing alliance against Council rule. High Arbiter Kethmore watched his empire crumble from the Council chambers on Nexus Prime. Reports of defeat arrived every day. Council fleets were being destroyed, ground forces were retreating, member species were abandoning the alliance. "How many ships have we lost?" he asked his military advisor. "Over 400, sir. The humans have some kind of new weapon that makes our defenses useless." "And the rebellions?" "Spreading. The Corvani have taken back 6 of their former worlds. The Zephyrians have declared the trade routes closed to council ships. Even some of our loyal species are questioning our authority." Ambassador Zethkar, who had delivered the original ultimatum to humanity, spoke carefully. "Perhaps we should consider negotiations." "With the humans?" Kethmore's voice was full of disgust. "They are the cause of this chaos." "Yes, sir, but they are also the only ones who might be able to stop it." On Earth, President Lisa Coleman received daily reports of victory. Human forces were winning battles across the galaxy. The Council's military was in retreat. Their political alliance was falling apart. But victory came with a price. Admiral Jackson had been killed leading an assault on a Council fortress world. Dr. Wright worked 18 hours a day to maintain humanity's technological advantage. Captain Morrison commanded ships crewed by young people who had never known peace. "How long can we keep this up?" Lisa asked her advisors. "As long as we need to," replied General Sandra Torres, who had taken over military command after Admiral Jackson's death. "The quantum disruptors give us maybe 6 more months before they develop countermeasures. But 6 months might be enough." "Enough for what?" "To win completely. The Council is falling apart. Half their member species have either joined us or declared neutrality. If we can capture their capital world, the war ends," Lisa finished. Across the galaxy, the impossible was happening. The Council that had ruled for 2 millennia was being defeated by a species they had dismissed as primitive and dangerous. Humanity's adaptability and determination were proving stronger than ancient technology and rigid tradition. The Council had pushed humanity too far, and now they were learning what happened when humans fought not just for territory or resources, but for the right to exist as free beings among the stars. The final battle was coming. 2 years after the war began, the mighty Galactic Council was dying. Their fleets were scattered across the galaxy, running from human ships they could not fight. Their member species had either joined humanity or declared neutrality. The capital, world of Nexus Prime, was under siege by a combined fleet of humans, Corvani, and Zephyrians. Admiral Jake Morrison, now commanding the largest human fleet in history, stood on the bridge of his flagship watching the ancient world through the viewscreen. Nexus Prime had been the center of galactic government for 2,000 years. Today it would surrender or be destroyed. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface," reported his communications officer. "Put it through." The face that appeared on the screen was old and tired. High Arbiter Kethmore, once the most powerful being in the galaxy, looked like a broken man. "Admiral Morrison, I wish to discuss terms of surrender." Jake had dreamed of this moment for 2 years. The alien who had tried to destroy humanity was finally admitting defeat. But the victory felt heavy. Too many good people had died to reach this point. "What terms are you offering?" Jake asked. "Complete surrender of all Council forces, recognition of human sovereignty, reparations for the Haven's Rest massacre, establishment of a new galactic government based on equality between species." On Earth, President Lisa Coleman sat in her office reading the surrender offer. The cost of victory was written on her face. She looked older than her years. The weight of leading humanity through its first galactic war had changed her. General Sandra Torres stood beside her desk. Sandra had replaced Admiral Pete Jackson after his death in the assault on the fortress world of Torhak. She was a good commander, but Lisa missed Pete's steady presence. "It's everything we asked for," Sandra said. "Complete victory." "Is it?" Lisa asked. "Pete is dead. Helen Wright is in the hospital from exhaustion. Half our young people have never known anything but war. Is this really victory?" Dr. Helen Wright lay in a medical bed on Europa, connected to machines that monitored her vital signs. She had worked herself nearly to death developing the weapons that won the war. Her assistant, Dr. Kevin Ross, sat beside her bed. The quantum disruptors worked perfectly, Kevin told her. We maintained our advantage throughout the war. The Council never developed effective countermeasures. Helen smiled weakly. Good, but, Kevin, I want you to promise me something. When this is over, we use this technology to build, not destroy. The galaxy has seen enough weapons. Back on Nexus Prime, High Arbiter Kethmore prepared for the most humiliating moment in Council history. He would travel to Earth and formally surrender to the species he had tried to control. His ship, once the symbol of Council power, now flew alone through space. His massive fleet was gone. His political alliance was shattered. The empire he had inherited was nothing but ruins and memories. Ambassador Zethkar, who had delivered the original ultimatum to humanity, stood beside him on the bridge. How did we get this so wrong? Kethmore asked. We saw their capacity for violence and assumed it made them predictable, Zethkar replied. We never understood that their greatest strength was not their ability to fight, but their ability to choose when not to fight. 3 days later, Kethmore's ship arrived at Earth. The planet that had once seemed so primitive now commanded respect throughout the galaxy. Human ships escorted the former council leader to the surface. In the halls of the United Nations, representatives from dozens of species gathered to witness the end of the old order. The Corvani warriors who had fought beside humanity stood proud, again after centuries of defeat. The Zephyrian traders looked forward to free commerce without council taxes. Even species that had remained neutral watched with interest. High Arbiter Kethmore walked slowly down the Great Hall. Each step took him further from the power he had held for 800 years. At the end of the hall, President Lisa Coleman waited at a simple podium. When Kethmore reached her, he did something no council leader had ever done. He knelt. I surrender the authority of the Galactic Council to the representatives of humanity and their allies, he said in a voice that carried across the silent hall. I acknowledge our crimes against your people. I accept responsibility for the deaths at Haven's Rest and other worlds. I ask for mercy. Lisa looked down at the being who had tried to destroy her species. She thought about the children killed in the bombardment. She remembered Admiral Jackson's sacrifice. She felt the weight of every human life lost in the war. But she also remembered why humanity had fought. Not for conquest, but for freedom. Not for revenge, but for the right to exist. The war is over, she said simply. We accept your surrender. 5 years later, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of an exploration ship called the New Dawn. His hair was gray now, and lines marked his face, but his eyes still held the wonder of discovery. Today, he was investigating signals from a star system no one had visited before. Captain, we're detecting artificial structures around the 4th planet, his science officer reported. Life signs? Yes, sir. The technology appears to be early spaceflight capability. They've just developed interstellar communication. Jake smiled. Another young species taking their first steps into the galaxy. He remembered when humanity had been in the same position, reaching out to the stars with hope and curiosity. Open a communication channel, he ordered. The face that appeared on the screen was unlike any species Jake had seen before. The alien had silver skin, large eyes, and tentacles instead of arms. But the expression was familiar. It was the look of wonder that came with discovering you were not alone in the universe. This is Captain Morrison of the Galactic Federation, Jake said. Welcome to the community of spacefaring species. We come in peace. The alien's eyes widened with excitement. You're from the stars? There are others like us out there? Many others. And now you're part of something bigger than any one world. Or species. Would you like to learn about the Federation? The new galactic government was nothing like the old council. Instead of domination, it offered partnership. Instead of rigid rules, it encouraged diversity. Species joined voluntarily and kept their independence. Decisions were made by agreement, not force. The Federation Charter, written mostly by humans but signed by representatives of 47 species, began with simple words. We, the sapient, beings of this galaxy, unite not to control each other, but to explore together the wonders of the universe. On Earth, President Coleman, now retired, tended a garden outside her home. She grew flowers from 12 different worlds, a symbol of what the galaxy could become when species worked together instead of fighting. Dr. Helen Wright, recovered from her exhaustion, led a research team developing new technologies for exploration and healing. The quantum principles that had once made weapons now powered faster ships and better medical equipment. High Arbiter Kethmore lived quietly on a small colony world, teaching history to young students of various species. He told them about the old days when fear ruled the galaxy, and how humanity had shown everyone a better way. The Council had pushed humanity too far and learned a lesson that echoed through the ages. They had seen humanity's potential for violence and tried to contain it through oppression. But they never understood that humanity's greatest power was not their ability to destroy, but their capacity to choose mercy after victory. The species they had feared for their aggression became the ones the galaxy needed for their wisdom. In trying to prevent humanity from becoming dangerous, the Council had created the very force that would remake the galaxy in the image of hope rather than fear. The stars belonged to everyone now, and the future stretched ahead full of possibilities that no single species could imagine alone.